Hey guys, this is the Asus P8B75-V. Now this is a relatively old motherboard. I pulled this out of the closet just a little bit ago, and I'm going to be using this to build a spare parts budget build coming up really soon. Now this I originally built this in used this in a system I built back in I think 2012, and I'm recording this in April of 2025. So this is a relatively old motherboard. In this video, we're mostly going to be going over the features of this motherboard, what it has on it, and we're going to be talking about, basically just the features, the different ports, stuff like that. We're just going to go over, the specs and stuff like that of the system board. So let's just jump right into it. The chipset is the Intel B75 Express. The word Express is not, it doesn't mean it's like an alternate version of the Intel B75. The full name is Intel B75 Express, but people got into the habit of just saying, Intel B75 and just excluding the word Express. But Express was like the brand name. So it isn't like an Express version of that chipset or something like that. Anyways, the socket, first thing to mention about this, the socket, CPU socket is LGA 1155. So that would fit a CPU such as this one. This is an i5-3330. So this is what was originally in here, and this is what I'm going to be putting back in here. So we're going to do that later. Anyways, in a different video. So that's not for this video, but that's just the CPU that would go in here. And let's see. So let's talk about, okay, so the CPUs supported are going to be Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge. And that's going to be 2nd gen or 3rd generation core CPUs respectively. I'm going to be putting that Ivy Bridge CPU in here. So this is going to have an Ivy Bridge CPU. Now, as in terms of memory, it supports DDR3 SD RAM, and the officially supported speeds are going to be 1066, 1333, and 1600 megahertz. And there's also overclock support for 1600, so you have some speeds above 1600 that you can get if you want to overclock it. I'm not even going to consider that. That's just not a thing for me. So memory slots, you have 4 DIMM slots, and you can get up to, 8 gigs per slot is supported, and you can get up to only 32 gigs of RAM, which at the time was a lot. These days doesn't seem like that much. It seems like a pretty standard and almost even low amount depending on what you're trying to do. Now, channel support, this supports dual channel memory, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Now, no ECC support, and unbuffered only, so there's no registered or buffered memory. And yes, it supports XMP profiles for overclocking. Now, you can use DDR3 13333 for guaranteed stability. If you use the 1600 megahertz, it might be less stable from what I read. I don't know how true that is. Anyways, you can see I have a DIMM in here right now. We're not going to talk about that in this video. I might make a separate video about this DIMM, and I'm going to probably do a whole builds video where I include all the parts all in one video. Anyways, so DDR3 1600 megahertz is supported only with Ivy Bridge CPUs, not with the Sandy Bridge. So if you're using Sandy Bridge, you're going to be limited to DDR3 1333 megahertz. So for dual channel support, this is what I said I was going to talk about. You're going to want to install identical modules into the same colored slots. So notice how we have a black and a blue slot. So it goes black, blue, right? Now you're going to do alternating slots. So these 2 blue slots are on separate channels, meaning if you have 2 channels, the system board can access each channel simultaneously, so you can access 2 DIMMs simultaneously. So if you were to place, each DIMM, if you were to place them, for example, in a black slot and a blue slot, they're not going to be accessed simultaneously. They're both going to be on one channel, so you can only access one DIMM at a time, and it's going to be slower. So if you have more than one DIMM, place them correctly, right? So you're going to put them in either a slot. So you have let's see, A1, A2, B1, and B2. So you can either put them in A1 and B1, so the 2 black slots, or A2 and B2, so the two blue slots, right? So just make sure you align them correctly and then verify it after you've brought your system up. So also you're going to want to make sure that they are the same size, the same speed, and the same brand. Now, if they're the same size, maybe you could get it to work partially. If they're a different brand or a different speed, they're probably not going to work. So dual channel just isn't going to work for you probably. Now this also has we're going to look at the Ethernet port lit in a little bit, but just wanted to point out that it's gigabit Ethernet, and also that integrated graphics are supported if the CPU supports it, which the CPU I'm going to put in here does support it. Now, this was pulled out of a system that had a GPU installed in it, but the spare parts build that I'm doing is not going to include a GPU. So the plan is to just use the onboard GPU that's built into the CPU that I'm going to use. So if you have a CPU that does have a GPU built into it, you can just use that with this motherboard. And we'll show you the ports for that in just a bit. So first, let's go over the components on the board, and then we'll look at the ports on the back, right? So let's see. First thing, you have the chassis fan power. So you have two ports, two plugs here where you could connect two different chassis fans. They could be powered from here. And now let's see here, number two. So up here you have your ATX power connector. So this one is going to be, so this is for your CPU. And over here, you're going to have, this is going to be for your motherboard. So this is your motherboard 24-pin power connector, and this is your 8-pin CPU connector, power connector, right? So let's see. So right here, you have your LGA 1158.5 CPU socket, and then over here you have, obviously your DDR3 DIMM slots, and then over here you have your memory OK switch, so you can like test your memory with that, and you have, let's see, number 6, you have a DIMM. There's a LED right underneath that plug. It is your it's your DRAM LED. So let's see what else we have. Number 7. So right here, I'm basically going over the diagram for these just to make sure I get every single component. So I'm going over the diagram as I point stuff out. So anyways, number 7 over here, this is these are all numbered, but this is a USB 3.0 connector, 20-1 pin. Anyways, yeah, it's a USB 3.0 connector, so you could connect something to this and have two cables coming out that would go to like the front of your case for USB 3.0. And let's see, 8 is going to be this guy down right here. So this is going to be your onboard LED. So this indicates power for the system. And over here you have up here these top 3 SATA ports right here are going to be it's on 3 gigabits per second connectors. So SATA 3 gigabit, and down here, also these two right here. So basically all the blue ones, you have 5 3 gigabit connectors, and then right here, this one white connector right here is going to be your 6 gigabit connector. So 6 gigabit, and then you have 5 3 gigabit connectors, right? And let's see, what else you have. Number 11 is going to be right down here, these pins right here. This is your system panel connector, so you can connect one big thing that goes on here and goes to the front of the system, or you can connect each of these, put a jumper or a cable on these one at a time. These are going to include things like your power button, a power LED, your hard drive activity LED, stuff like that, reset button, all those things. And theoretically, you could use like a screwdriver or a paper clip to touch 2 of these pins together to turn the system on if you don't have a power button connected to this. I've done that before, but generally better just have a power button, way more convenient. And so down here you have two connectors where you can connect USB 2.0. Now each of these will support multiple USB ports. So you would connect one end of a cable to this, and it would come to the front of your case or wherever and have multiple USB ports connected to that. And then this one would have yet another cable. One end connects here, the other end goes to multiple USB ports, which you would typically connect to the front of your case. So all right, next item is going to be this thing up here. So this is actually listed as number 13, which is the clear RTC RAM. So this is a clear RTC RAM jumper, so you can just move this jumper. Now over here you have an LPT connector. This is a 26 pin, and this is like an old, so basically an old-fashioned printer connector from the olden days that mostly isn't used too much anymore, but is, for whatever reason, still on the system board. Even back when this system board was new, this was not common. People used USB or connected to their printer over the network. Anyways, over here, you have a serial port connector. I think more useful. There are more different use cases for it, but even still, not something that I've seen people use in a really, really long time. I'm sure there are edge cases where people might use it, but in any case, that's the serial port. And now, right above that, you can barely see it, but right between this slot and this white thing here, you see the SPDIF. Uh, yeah, it's the digital audio connector. So SPDIF out. So you could connect this and it could go to the front of your case for some digital audio ports if you wanted those. And now number 17, I think this is this is the last component we're going to go over, is right here, these jumpers right here. AAFP, so front panel audio. Oh, so these are the front panel audio connectors. And yeah, so these would go to the front panel. I believe you would want these and this, but I couldn't tell you a whole lot more about that. If I try to pretend to know what I'm talking about in terms of either of these audio connectors, I'd probably just, I'd be wrong, right? So I would have to look, if I actually wanted to use those, I'd kind of have to look into them a little bit more, but that's what the pins here and here are. Any case, let's move along to the ports on the back. So let's turn this around, and we're going to go over the ports on the back of this. All right, so real quick, going to go over the ports on the back. And then one thing I almost forgot was the PCI slots, PCI and PCIe. We have both types, so we're going to go over those. But first, we're going to go over the ports on the back. Then we're going to go over PCIe slots, right? So in any case, I was actually supposed to do PCIe slots first and then the ports on the back. But in any case, let's just jump right into this. So this has a PS2 mouse port, and I believe one of these is going to be keyboard, one of these is going to be mouse. Oh, nobody uses these. These are old-fashioned connectors from back in the olden days. These days, everyone uses like a USB mouse or a mouse and keyboard, or just Bluetooth even. But even at the time of making this video, these were pretty old, and these days they're even older. These are more like ancient relics, right? So these were kind of anachronistic even at the time that this system board came out. Now, I can tell you what was not anachronistic. This wasn't that anachronistic. This was still pretty common, although DVI was getting to be way more common. And interestingly, you'll notice that there's no HDMI port on this. I was actually surprised. I was like, wait, this does not come with HDMI? I'm pretty sure the GPU that I had on here does have HDMI, so that was a non-issue. But yeah, you only have DVI here, no HDMI. So anyways, so this one right here is it's the D-sub port or the VGA port. So D-sub is basically VGA. I've commonly always just called this VGA. I had never heard anyone say D-sub until I looked it up in the specs for this actual specific motherboard. I don't know how I never came across that term, but I guess D-sub is VGA. I guess that's the same thing. Any case, right here, you are going to have your DVI D port. So there are different types of DVI, and this is DVI D. And you can get adapters between the different types and stuff. So you're also going to have your Ethernet port right here, and this is going to be a Realtek. So this is an RJ45 port, and it connects to a Realtek chipset. So if you're a Linux user, I believe that's supposed to be, it should work, but I believe that's one of the chipsets that people complain about and have issues with. So you're probably better off not having Realtek, but it's been fine. It's been, this was used for years and it was totally fine. Of course, it wasn't used with Linux. I'm sure this would work fine with Linux too. But I've used Linux with Realtek plenty of times. Anyways, that's me. Yeah, I just remember people having complained about it a lot. Any case, yeah. So you got 4. So this is actually coming back to these real quick. This is supposed to be keyboard. This is supposed to be mouse, and I forget if they're interchangeable, but the one is keyboard, one is mouse, right? So one is specifically labeled for the keyboard, one is specifically labeled for the mouse, and I think it's been so long since I've used these. It must have been 25 years since I've used any of these. Since then, it's been USB everything. So I forget if they were interchangeable. I used to know. Now, in any case, right here, you have some USB 2.0 ports. And over here, you have more USB 2.0 ports. So two USB ports, two USB ports. Those are, all four of those are USB 2.0. And this one right here is, these two blue USB ports are USB 3.0. So you got those there. Now over here, you have your audio I/O ports. So you have mic in, you have speaker out, and I honestly I forget what the point of this was. I know it has some significance if you know more about audio. I don't know enough about audio. I believe it's for like I think it's line in or whatever, and it has something to do with beyond my area of expertise, I should say. I should know more about that. I should know more about audio, but I don't. But anyways, headphones or speakers go here. Microphone goes here. This is for if you know more about audio than I do. Now, those are the rear panel ports. That's all the stuff on your, your back panel. Now, let's talk about these. I'm going to tilt this at an angle here. I feel like that's kind of appropriate for this. And I'm going to go over each one of these. So your first slot here, this one's really small. This is a PCIe 2.0, and this is an X1 or a 1X slot, so it can only use one lane of PCIe. Now, this is PCIe version 3, and you can use 16 lanes of PCIe. So 16 PCIe lanes, and this is at 16x mode. So if you have a GPU, this is the slot you're going to want to put it in, and it's less physical distance from here to the CPU. So I believe that's why they placed it up here. But yeah, that's what that is. This is the full 16x mode PCIe 3 slot right here. Now, if you let's see, these are all in order. So yeah, going along, we have another PCIe 2.0 port. And this is a 1X slot, just like the one over here. So these are both PCI 2.0 and only one lane, right? Now this slot right here is an old-fashioned, this is an old-fashioned PCI slot. So I believe that means this is not even PCIe at all. It's just old-fashioned PCI, which is significantly slower than PCIe. Now down here, you're going to see this one is PCIe 2.0, not 3.0 like this one. So 2.0, and it is an X16 slot, but it is not in X16 mode. This is at 4X mode. So even though it's a 16 X16 slot, it's only at X4 mode. So you're only going to get 4, even though it's as big as something that would typically have 16 lanes, this will only give you 4 PCIe lanes. So if you put your GPU in here, it's going to be limited. You're going to want to put your GPU right here for full speed and for all 16 PCIe lanes. Now, over here, you are going to have this is going to be a PCI slot and PCI slot. So these are regular PCI slots. So if you have something where you don't absolutely need that PCIe performance, just stick them in here. PCI, PCI, PCI. You're going to put PCI, old-fashioned PCI cards here. You're going to put 2-lane PCI Express 2.0 here. And yeah, you could put 2 GPUs in here, and my understanding is that since this has PCIe 2.0 and 3.0, that if you use PCIe 2.0 lanes, you're not going to be using your PCI. That's not going to take away from your PCIe 3.0 lanes. So technically, even if you if you could plug in dual GPUs, one here and one here, the one here is going to take 16 lanes, but it's not going to have to share any of those with the GPU that you put here, because this GPU is going to be using your 2.0 lanes. I think that's how it works. I'm not 100% sure, so maybe I'm wrong there. I could be wrong, but I believe that's how that works. 99% sure that is the case. But let's see, what else can we talk about here? So yeah, recommended for PCI or dual, it's going to be 16. And yeah, so I think that's everything we could talk about in terms of PCIe slots. And let me see if there's anything else to talk about this. I think I was missing something actually. And I think, okay, I did mention Okay, so this was, I missed this, and it's because of how the diagram was labeled. So the diagram lists as number one, it lists, there's two things it lists as number one. Number one, it lists the chassis fan. There's two chassis fan connectors here. So it lists those as number one, but it also lists the CPU fan as number one. You got the CPU fan up here. So your chassis fan and your CPU fan right up here. So that's worth pointing out. And other than that, I think that's everything notable. I don't think I'm missing anything else. That's everything notable on the system board. Those are all the different components and everything. Got the back panel, all the components on the board, all the slots, everything. So that's basically everything I would want to talk about. You know what, while I'm at it, I'm going to turn this board over and just look at the, there's not much to look at on the back. This is what it looks like on the back. This is what it looks like on the front. I still think this is a pretty neat heat sink on here, and I like the blue coloring, you know, in terms of aesthetics, so that's kind of nice. So it's an old board, but I'm going to put it to use, and I kind of expect it to work pretty well. And I'm actually, there's some discoloration on this slot. I forget why that's discolored or what that's, I mean, it almost seems like there was a GPU here and some dust built up on top of it. Either that or something caught fire and burnt in here. I don't recall. It looks like there was a component in here that actually burnt out. That's what it looks like looking at it, but it could also be dust. You'll notice it's a little discolored there. Not sure why that is. And I could have sworn I had a good card in here though. And it looks like this slot has been used. So I'm actually not sure what the deal is with this slot. And actually, now that I think back, I could swear this thing actually had a sound card, a separate sound card for specific audio needs. So this was being used not by me, but by someone else. So the GPU here, I believe this was a sound card in here that had specific features that were needed for some audio purposes that I don't know anything about, but I believe that's where that card went. And I believe dust, actually, now that I think of it, I think the GPU was here, the fans were on the bottom, and there was probably some dust stuck between the fans and the, it was kind of not optimal placement to put this right next to it. I probably should have put it down near the bottom. I forget if there was something else taking up space down here or what my reasoning was, but now that I think about it, I'm 99% sure I had the GPU here and a sound card right here and dust built up on the top here that I haven't completely, I cleaned this up pretty well, but not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that was dust that built, there's some discoloration on here from dust. I can kind of scrape it off with my fingernail, but yeah, I did clean this thing up with like some cotton swabs and alcohol. That's generally how I clean things, but I got this pretty well dusted and cleaned up. But there's actually still, I didn't do a great job. There's still some dust on the back side of this stick of RAM here. So there's that. And but anyways, yeah, so that's basically everything I wanted to talk about for this board. Now stay tuned. We're going to be I have put out, I'm not sure if I put it out before this video or right after, but I'm doing one where I have a video where I talk about the CPU that I'm going to put in here, and I'm doing one where I talk about the PSU, and I'm going to probably do one on the stick of RAM, and maybe I'll put a different stick of RAM in here. I'm going to probably want to increase the RAM for what I'm doing with this. I also have another video where I talked about these Xeon processors, which totally aren't compatible with this board, but I did another video on that. So you don't want to miss out on that stuff. If that's the kind of content you're interested in, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on that. We do a lot of great tech content, a lot of hardware content. We do a lot of software content too. We do hardware, software, coding, electronics, servers, desktops, 3D printing, robots, Raspberry Pis, networking, lots of great tech stuff you don't want to miss out on. Do like Linux, Windows, Mac OS, all the tech stuff, right? If that's the kind of stuff you want in your feed, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the little bell icon so you don't miss out. When we do, so you actually get, the bell icon will let you know when we actually do come out with a new video, it'll actually notify you. But yeah, you might want to give me a thumbs up for this video, but also if you've used a board like this or something similar, leave a comment down below letting me know what your experience was like. And do you still use old hardware that's this old? I believe this came out somewhere around 2012. I know the CPU that's going in here came out in September of 2012. Do you use hardware this old? Would you use something this old? What's your budget like? let me know down in the comments down below. If I missed anything or I left out a feature or I misspoke or made any mistakes, feel free to call me out on that or correct me down in the comments down below. But that's about it for today. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.